year, new grind. I got a question for you. Are you living life, or is life living you? How bad do you want to be successful? Are you ready to level up in life? Are you ready to go to that next level? Are you sick of being average? I ask you again, are you living life, or is life living you? Less than unstoppable, the international world tour. Dr. Billy Alsbrooks, coming to a city near you. I'll be teaching a 4-hour, life-changing seminar on the art of greatness. Arise, champion. Every city will sell out. Get your tickets now. This year we're taking this thing global. 27 cities, Toronto, London, Paris, Rome. We're coming to impact 1 billion people. If you are serious about success, be at one of these events. Get your tickets now at blessedandunstoppable.com.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Never Quit podcast. We have got an awesome guest in store today. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Blessed and unstoppable.
Amen.
Oh, hey.
That's right.
Okay, I think Marcus stole your
The tagline.
because
It's
he
okay.
says that every day. It's awesome.
I'm so
People
proud.
love it.
That's
Yeah.
They don't know what to do when you say that.
Yeah.
Right.
I heard one the other day because I threw it out. This young lady asked me, she's like, "How you doing?" I was like, "I'm blessed and unstoppable. Thank you for asking." And she's like, "Well, I'm blessed and highly favored." And I was like, "Ooh."
That's a good one.
That's awesome. Hey, well, let's kick this thing off with a Patreon question of the day. It's coming from Mac. He asks, if you could eat one food for the rest of your life,
Steak.
what would it be?
Steak. No,
Steak.
wait, macaroni and cheese. Only one. Right? Damn it. Started overthinking it.
Spaghetti. I love spaghetti.
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, I mean, well, on a cheat day it's pizza, but other time like you, it's the ribeye steak.
Oh,
I
the
have
ribeye.
a half and half, clear half and half. It is either going to be like some sort of Cajun food, like a gumbo and rice, or what my grandparents call rice and gravy, which is not gravy at all. It's just kind of like a stew. It's hard to describe. My Louisiana folks will get that. Or queso.
Or just queso.
Chips and queso.
It's like, okay, if I wanted to live long, it'd probably be ramen,
Yeah,
right?
ramen.
Because you can't go wrong with that. You can
Right.
do all kinds of stuff with that.
Yeah.
Oh, pepper jack stuffed boudin balls from Louisiana, too.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Pizza's a good answer, though,
Yeah.
because there's different kinds.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's awesome. What is your favorite pizza?
Supreme. I like it all. Just
Just
put it
put it
all on
on
there.
there.
Yeah, put it all on there.
That's awesome.
If you're
Hey,
gonna
Mac-
do it big.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
No sense
Exactly.
playing with it.
Hey, if you want to ask a question to the guests, to the hosts, you can check us out, patreon.com/Team Never Quit. We've got some exclusive access to content that's behind the scenes. We've got a challenge coin. We got some sweet swag. We've even got the ability to drop a voicemail for the show coming really soon. So make sure you check that out at patreon.com/Team Never Quit. We have got a great guest in store. Dr. Billy Alsbrooks is a motivational artist, top-selling author, award-winning poet. His viral inspirational messages have been streamed more than 45 million times. His life-changing book, Blessed and Unstoppable, has been sold in over 30 countries. Billy is a former Billboard recording artist, songwriter, hit music producer, and also the founder of B7U Clothing. Dr. Billy, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, man. It's an honor to be here, brother.
What does that feel like when you hear that about yourself?
Surreal sometimes.
It's crazy, right?
Right. Sometimes
Congratulations. Good
God
job.
is good. God, it's all Him. God is good, man.
Right?
God is good.
Because that's a lifetime of achievement stuck in there, man.
Absolutely. Heck of an intro, man.
It's good, yeah. It is. So thank you for coming out here and being a part of this, man. I'm excited to. I can't believe we lived this close together.
I know.
That's not how I knew about you.
Right.
And so it's good to have you out here, brother. I can't wait to hear the whole story, if you don't mind. So
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing, like, from the beginning, where'd you grow up?
Okay.
And just tell us kind of your whole...
So let me find out. I'll tell you how I got introduced to you.
Okay.
Every year I go down to Florida,
Right.
to do my physical therapy. They got to put me back together, mind, body, and spirit. And I'm alone up there. The family stays back. It's like a healing deployment for me.
Okay.
And all I do is throw on those motivational videos. That's the only thing on the TV. They play constantly, like on YouTube. And you're in a bunch of them that aren't yours.
Right. People
Put them in. Yeah,
stuff.
you've been
Right,
stabbed
right.
into a couple of them,
Right.
and that's how I caught your voice, right? And And there's still a few of them on there that I don't know their names. But somehow, some way, man, your name popped up. Somebody said it. And then they got your last name wrong. So I couldn't figure that out either. And I was like, whatever. So I just kept, this is going on. And finally, warrior and champion are a good one. I always take the champion word and put Texan in it.
Right.
But yeah, and then it is, man. It's one of those you've reached to a place where you hit a chord. I don't care what kind of day I had the day before when I woke up, and when I wake up and go out there, man, it's like a reset. So, the people you impact, man, if you're not familiar with how far that reach goes, it goes a long way.
Man, I appreciate it, man.
Well, you're welcome.
God is good. God is good.
That's how I came to know you, and to finally meet you face to face is awesome. So I'm interested in hearing how we made it this long without ever meeting each other, since we grew up around each other, apparently.
Well, it's so funny because our kids can probably quote you just off of the music from the YouTube, because he has it on so much that awesome. I think we all know the words to the YouTubes because it's always played in our house. So
that's an over-exaggeration.
It's not at all. So
that is good.
I just want you to know that he's not blowing smoke at all. He's for sure very inspired by you.
I appreciate it. You know, when you're starting out, I'm sure you can relate to this. When you start out and you get behind the mic, you don't know who's listening on the other side in the beginning. So it's good to hear that, God was moving and putting the stuff in the right place, man. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Often, it's like when I hear something, like I kind of fall into that groove of, let me just type in like what everybody else is listening to.
Right.
Right, and you skip a bunch of songs on a whole album because you only listen to the ones, but it's the resonance. It's what you're saying, because there's a difference between listening and hearing.
Amen.
You know what I'm talking about? And each one of those, like lighter fluid, it's reversed for me. It's like the negative stuff that gets thrown on me. Yeah, I turn that into a positive now, right. But then it's like the energy that comes just out of that is a fuel itself.
Right.
Because it can be good, brandished for a good thing. Lighter fluid can be a good thing.
Right, exactly.
Even if it comes in as a negative.
That's right.
Yeah.
What the devil meant for harm, God will make good. We take what the world throws at us and
somebody's told you it's bad.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
That's a word that describes something, that emotion. But if you switch it around, it's like, no, that's my fuel.
That's right.
Then absorbs in a good way.
That's right. We burn it off.
Right.
We burn it off with the fire.
So who gave you your faith foundation? Did you grow up with that?
I grew up in the church. My mother and father were worship leaders and led the choir back then. And so the time I was little, I was in the church.
Which one?
Growing up, it was a Methodist church.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a small town, about 30,000 people, Florence, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And around the 80s, the early 80s, I think I was around 8.5, 9 years old, the recession set in. So all the jobs dried up around there. There wasn't much work. So my family, we moved to Dallas. So the oil was booming back then in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad got a job out there, and we moved to Dallas and stayed in the church there. But then my mother got transferred down to South Florida, and right around my high school years. And at that point in time, that's kind of where I went away from the church for a little while. I had to find my way back.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Do you
like
mind?
when you leave the nest, man, it's like I think at that age we all go first.
Right.
Like, you don't watch me. Let me see what I got to
right.
do. The first 40 years, you're trying to figure out the man you're not.
That's right.
And it's walking in those other directions. The further you walk, the more you learn.
That's right. And they raised me right. The word says, train up a child in the way he should go. When he grows old, he will not depart from it. But it says when he grows old. It doesn't mean when we're young, we won't depart from it, right? So I learned
they
that
need to make that word, bold letters.
Right. When he grows old, he will not depart from it. So I got around my high school years, and my mother came to me and she said, okay, we've raised you right. We put you in the church, right and wrong. But now you got to make the decision, right? So this is around 13, 14 years old. At this point in time, my heroes have changed. It's not Superman anymore and Batman. Now it's the gangsters and the thugs and the drug dealers, right?
Like people can't understand when that happened.
That's right.
Like that was very impressionable because we were rolling into high school, and when hip hop and gangster rap came out, because at first it was just the MCs,
right.
And I thought them dudes were terrifying,
right? The party vibe, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when gangster rap rolls in there, you're like, what is that?
That's right.
And
was
it
a different
changed
energy.
everything.
I was listening to, and I always went to a Christian school, and I was listening to Tupac and Eazy-E and
The Dogfather, man, I still listen to him.
Right.
I was listening to all of that. That was just the era. That was the time we
Right.
grew up in. I was also at the same time listening to Alan Jackson. I mean, it just
We were the
depends
same
on.
thing with us. The radios would switch.
Right.
That was when you made the tape. You flipped the summer mix and all that stuff like that. And then you had a little bit of both. And the parties always had that. You always had the mix of all that.
That's right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
Around
so
that
funny.
time, though, she said, "Now the decision is yours." So she would come in on Sunday. You want to go with me to church? And I said, "I think I'm gonna pass today, Mom. Because we've been out all night, partying the night before at this point in time." So I took a detour. And my sophomore year, I got into music. I was playing, sports, football, baseball, lettering, and everything. And we had like a 3 or 4 hour break between when school got out and the game I had that night. And I went over to a friend's house, and he was a DJ, right? He was like the top DJ in the area. And he had a microphone and music in there. So me and a couple of guys that went over there to the house with him, we would get on the mic and just bust a little freestyles and things like that. And we recorded it. Like you said, it was on a tape. We recorded that little hour and a half session that we went and did. And I went home. I was so happy to hear myself on tape for the first time. I made 5 copies, went back to school the next day, and I sold all those 5 copies before lunch at $5 a piece back then. That was
Not
a
even
big
giving away,
deal.
sold them, already a businessman.
Right, I mean, exactly.
Right?
This is where it started, right there. Because at this time I was getting like $10 a week allowance, right? And my mama worked me real hard for chores, like
Right.
real hard, $10. I had to earn the $10, right? So by lunchtime I had,
I don't know what that's like hard work. Right?
Yeah, but my mama worked hard.
So they can come up with some stuff.
That's right. So by lunchtime I had $25, and I'm like doing, rap and stuff I love. I made $25. So by the end of the day, I'd already had my plan together. I was going to Walgreens to buy another 10 pack of tapes. I was coming back tomorrow, and by the end of the week, I had $100-something. I was like, wow, you can make money doing.
Those are Jordans back then.
Yeah, I was like, you can make money doing what you love. So from that point on, nobody could hardly tell me anything about working a regular job or anything. It was just, I'm gonna do.
That is
what
a
I love
regular
to do.
job, right? It's
Right,
just a regular
right,
to
right.
somebody else.
Right,
Hustling.
exactly. Well, when I say regular job, doing something you don't love, just going every day to get paid, doing something you don't love,
Right. I get the anticipation because they're like, well, it's unknown, especially if your parents don't know anything about it.
Right.
I could see how that could go both ways.
So I ended up taking the money that I, was making from there, going to his house and recording and buying my own equipment, and started DJing and doing parties and rapping.
And where you living now?
I'm in Orlando now, right outside Orlando.
No. When this is
This
going down.
was in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, or South Florida. This is where it was all jumping off down there. I mean, it was bad. We were right in the middle of it. We were right in the middle of that time.
Because that's when Miami was good at football. And that whole
this
was crazy there.
Right, and the 80s was drug Miami. I mean, it was where
best
everything
movies
was jumping
come out of
off.
the 80s.
That's right.
Out of Miami.
That's right. It was pretty wild back then. This is when 2 Live Crew
Oh my
was
gosh.
having the controversy, right, with the censorship and all that.
Are they the ones that kicked that off? Did that start with them?
The global thing about it was them.
I remember like the phenomenon.
Right,
Like,
that was it.
2
The
Live
freedom
Crew has
speech,
been banned in the USA, right?
Yeah.
God, listen
I
to them.
remember
Wow.
that being a deal, like even with us, because this was back in tape days. Like our parents would break the tapes or pull all the
Right.
the stuff out so you can't listen to it. And I was like, but to me, I never listened to the words. I liked the beat of it, and I'm like, I'm not listening to the words. It's talking about smoking weed and doing all this other stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I just want to listen to it.
Running
It
the
sounds
tape.
good.
Say, go do your homework. It's like, let me show you what I can do with this number 2 pencil. I can put that tape back together.
Exactly. I remember coming home one day. I guess they had one on TV, and they were, pushing to the parents like, look at the music your kids are listening to, right? So I come home one day, and there's all these records. This time I'm living in a townhome, so we're living like next to people on both sides. And I come home, and then, there's trash out front, right? And there's all these records out, because I'm a DJ. I got the 12 inches, but I see all these 12-inch records in the trash, but I don't realize it's my trash. I'm thinking it's the neighbors. I'm like, oh, I could get some some of their vinyl. I'm going through it and I see my name on all this stuff. Right. My mom had went through and saw all the parental advisory stickers and threw all that stuff out. So I remember hiding and going back inside the house with all this stuff.
Dude's got my name on his records, man.
Yeah, she had went through all my lyric books and I had all this stuff, the explicit material all through the books, and that just wasn't gonna fly in her house. She was like, this is not gonna happen. Mm-hmm. So I was raised right, but I turned my back on that for a little while, went through the struggle. And something else that was critical at this point in time, from my middle school years all the way to my senior year, my dad was struggling with alcohol. He was an alcoholic. His father was a full-blown alcoholic. All of his brothers were alcoholics, and my dad, of course, fell right in that line. And now they were all different types of alcoholics. Like my granddaddy, if he had one drop, he was gonna beat on everybody within a mile, women and children included. Mm. He was a good man, but if he got moonshine, it was different. Mm-hmm. Now my uncles, they were what we called functioning alcoholics. Like they could, they would get drunk tonight, let's say, but get up and go to work tomorrow and still function. Right? It didn't take over their life yet. Now my daddy, he had a different time. If he had one drop of alcohol, he was gonna binge for 2 to 3 weeks and could not stop. Could not stop. The only way he would stop is, we would hide the keys, hide the money, and basically just kind of lock him down in a room where he couldn't get out for 2 or 3 days till he could sober up. Because he would, once he got that one drop, it was just poured in until he was passed out. He'd wake up 5 or 6 hours later and continue to drink. Now he did this pattern from about the 5th grade, 6th grade, all the way to my senior year.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was doing the music thing and kind of trying to find an outlet.
And get away from it.
Yeah, to get away a little bit, because I could, when the mic came on, I turned in almost to the Superman character. Like I put on this, the cape. Okay, I'm gonna get behind this mic and do this thing that's on the inside of me. So I could kind of tune all that out and just channel it, on the mic, which helped me at that time. It gave me the outlet to do it. But I started going down the wrong path right there in Fort Lauderdale. So
did you take after your dad and drink it during that time? Like think if he's doing it, it's okay.
I saw so much, negativity and the smell of it, because he would, my dad was always fearful he was gonna run out. So here's the cycle. What he would do, okay? He would be sober for 2 months, and he was a super salesman. Everybody loved my dad. He had a great personality, loyal, showed up on time, perfect, American, right? But he had this vice. Mm-hmm. So he would struggle with trying to be like my uncles. Like he would think, let's say on the way home, let's say he had a bad day or a stressful day. He'd be on the way home and he's like, I'm gonna stop and get a beer, just one. I can drink like my uncle, my brothers, and I can control it, just one. So he'd go to the gas station, pull in, go inside. Well, they got a sale on 6-packs, might as well, and then it was like, well, a case, I'll give some to my brothers when they come over. So he would, and next thing you know, by the time we were almost home, he'd have had, 3 or 4 or 5 of them drunk already before we got to the house, and he would go through this cycle where it'd be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he was completely incapacitated, So he would start a new job. 2 months later, he'd fall off the wagon, do this, and then the employer would start calling the house for me and mom, like, where's Billy? Where's Billy? And we'd say, well, he's sick. We'd cover for him. Mm-hmm. We'd lie. And, 2 weeks go by, he'd sober, he'd go back to the new job. 2 months later, he'd fall off again. They'd start calling. They realize, okay, he's got a problem or whatever. And they would always be nice. They'd tell, like, we really love your daddy or whatever. We want him to be here, but we got to move on. Got to have somebody consistent. Mm-hmm. So my dad did this cycle just over and over and over and wouldn't stop. And he tried everything, AA, church groups, rehabs, you name it. He just couldn't find that why or hit rock bottom. He hadn't hit rock bottom yet. So all through my middle school years and high school years, I dealt with that. Like I'd go into school, put that mask on. Like how's the teacher said, how you doing, Billy? Great. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing great. I'm broke. On the inside, we've been up all night trying to sober daddy up, Mm-hmm. So as far as, me drinking, I had seen like the wine on the floor and the smell of alcohol and just him, being immersed in that. And I was like, and I want to break the cycle. Mm-hmm. You usually go one or two ways. You either become like them or you go the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. And me, I was so fed up. I told mama, I was like, I'm never gonna drink. Now, of course I did, but it was always in the back of my mind. Like high school people, the peer pressure, like, have a drink. And I kind of drink, but I was like, I'm not really into this because I know what this is for me. And so I kind of just, placated people around me, but I never really sunk my teeth into that. What I did was become the number one promoter of drugs and alcohol in the music world. With my mouth, it's like the enemy couldn't get me that way. Then I became the promoter of it in my music. One of my top songs back in the day as a rapper was called Pop a Pill. It was number one, and I didn't even do pills, but I was thriving. I'd get paid good. The club money was good, and this was going on. So I kind of captured what the the music scene and what was going on in the clubs with with my writing, which was my God-given gift was the writing and speaking. So I would capture that and put it into my work, and it would work. But I'm working for the enemy, and the whole time I'm in environments that I cannot stand. I'm in a club, everybody drunk, and I'm like, I just came from home and would done anything to get out of alcohol, and here I am, put myself right back in that same environment that I was trying to get away from. So all through middle school and high school, that was my life. Dealing with him being an alcoholic. And I had so many tragic times and stuff. I remember I'd be on the football field, right? And my dad and I, we were born in Alabama, so it's football all day. Alabama Crimson Tide all day, right? So my dream was to play there at this time. And I'm in high school, and I'd see my dad come up in the stands after work, and I'm out on the field playing a game, and I could look up in the stands, and I could say, he's been drinking. I could see it from the field. Like I'd see my dad's eyes enough to know from way over here, he's drinking. And I used to panic because I'm like, when you're in school, it's all about image, right? He's up there talking to the parents, and they're going to figure out that he's a drunk, and then it's going to get to the kids, and I'm going to take the brunt of it. So the whole game, my whole attention is on the stands up there, stuff like that. And I remember growing up too, one thing me and my dad did together was martial arts, karate. Around 5 years old, I started doing martial arts when he signed up. So from 5 to 9, we trained hard, and at 9 years old, I got my black belt. And I started competing all around the country. I won the Texas State Championship 4 times in my division, national championship, junior Olympic team, trained with the Olympic team. This is what we did together. And I remember one time I was teaching a class. I was like 11 years old teaching a class. Having the state champion, all that, people would come wanting to learn. So I was teaching a class, and my dad had dropped me off and left, which was strange for me. Normally he was always there. Like if he was sober, he would have never left. He would have been there at the class. But he left, and it kind of like gave me sufficient, like, where's he going? About 30 minutes later, and I don't know exactly what happened, but he comes stumbling in through the door at the karate center. He had gotten drunk, fell somewhere, busted his head, had blood running all down his head, coming in the door. And I've got all these students and kids in there, and I'm just embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, how do I get out of here? So I just, bowed out real quick, got my dad as quick as I could out of that place to the car. And now I'm stuck because I'm still in the parking lot, and everybody's looking outside to see, like, what's going on here? I'm 11 years old, and I don't really know, how to handle the situation. I just want to get out of there as quick as possible. Now my dad's incoherent, drunk, blood coming down. I just want to get out of here. So I get in his lap. I'm like, we've got to drive out of here. I can't, like, people going to come outside and going to see us, right? Like, that was my biggest fear. So I got in a lap. He kind of pushed the gas and the brake, and I drove that thing 30 minutes from the other side of Mesquite all the way to Garland during rush hour traffic in his lap. And he would be like, halfway passing out like this with his foot on the gas. And I'm like, Dad, wake up. And he'd hit the brake. And we did this all the way home during rush hour traffic, all the way to the apartments there in Garland. And then when I got home, of course, it's that time where everybody's out front of the apartment playing, all the kids, right? And I'm thinking, how am I going to get my dad from this van that we're in upstairs on the second floor of the apartment with all these kids out front? So as soon as we pulled up, all the kids run up to the car. They come to hang out, and my dad is lit. At this point in time, he's passed out. He passed out in the seat, like was out. There was no waking him up, nothing. He was out like this. I'm sitting in his lap, covered with blood on my karate uniform. All these kids out there, and I'm like, oh my God. So I run upstairs, and I tell my mom, and you saw my mom, she's 5'1". She's not that big. She comes down and me and her have to lift my dad, who's about 5'11", 200 pounds. We got to get him up the step in front of all these kids. So that was like my life. This is the kind of thing that we would do, every 2 months. This was the thing.
Well, the good thing is you in your karate uniforms and with your buddies asked like,
Right.
I got out of line. I had to.
I was learning how to fight for real. Like this is what real life was going to be like. It wasn't, it wasn't going to be in a controlled environment like it was in the dojo. Man, this is what life was going to be.
Yeah.
Having to learn to fight the hard way. So alcohol and drugs had a different meaning to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And that's so hard for a kid too, just to always feel like you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
You don't know when.
Right.
Because really that alcohol is just a door for the devil to come out.
Right,
You don't
right.
know how he's going to act. You don't know if he's going to embarrass you.
Right.
Or,
Exactly.
Because it's not really him.
Right. And it was always like a ticking time bomb because we never knew when he was going to do this. So I was always on guard and looking at his eyes. Has he been drinking? Even when everything was good, that still was on my mind. And later on in life, he found sobriety. In the last 15 years, he went out and helped others. But even during that 15 years, what I really regret most, because he's no longer here, and I'll tell you a little bit about that story. But even 15 years later, I was scared to really say, I'm proud of you that you've done this, because I was scared if I said something, he'd fall off or relapse, and that I might trigger something. And even 10, 12 years later, I'm still looking at the eyes when he gets up. Like, is this going to be the day where it all comes up, the rug's pulled out under me again, So, that was the way that I grew up. So alcohol had a little different meaning. There was one time there was a turning point too. My mother, we were in Dallas at that time. My mother had got transferred down to Florida going into my sophomore year. So we had 2 weeks to go to Florida, find a place, and then move everything from Dallas down there. So like the day before we're supposed to leave to Florida to go find the apartment, my dad falls off the wagon, pulls a drunk. So we know he's no good because it's 2 weeks. When he takes a drop, it's 2 weeks. You can just wipe that off the calendar. He's going to be no good. So my mom's like, we got to go anyway because we got to find this place. I can't lose this job, and we've got to go. So she told my uncle, check in on Billy because he's been drinking again. So we flew to Florida. Well, a couple of days later, my uncle calls, and he's like, well, y'all got to rush back here right now. Billy's in the hospital, and they're not sure he's going to make it. Well, what had happened with my dad was, he couldn't find alcohol when we were gone. He didn't have a way to get anywhere. So he drank a full bottle of rubbing alcohol.
Oh my god.
Full bottle.
Took it up, right?
Yeah, because for some reason later on he told me he didn't remember drinking it, but he said, that my grandfather would, with the moonshine, they would pour that through bread or something and filter it out so that you could drink it. But whatever reason, he drank the full bottle. And when my uncle found him, he was non-responsive on the floor, blood everywhere. Like he had thrown up and toxic. Yeah, and they thought he was going to die. They were like, there's no way he's ever going to make it back. But, it was like 44 days my dad was on dialysis. And they said, well, he's never going to walk. Like, he'll be able to live but not walk. And by each step, my dad made it, made it out of that situation and got sober. And about 9 months later, came to Florida where me and my mom were. Couple weeks later, fell right back off the wagon again. So that was my whole middle school and high school years. It was just going through that cycle.
That's hard.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, but it made sure. One thing it did, it made sure that I never touched that stuff ever, or at least got into that world that he was in. So that was the turning
That's
point.
a different realm altogether.
Yeah.
When you're hustling for like rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
That's
tough,
hard.
man.
It wasn't until my senior year, because my mother had tried everything. My senior year, finally, she didn't know what else to do. She filed divorce in my senior year. But the craziest thing, that was the last day my daddy ever drank.
Really?
The last day.
That's
From
what
the
it
last
took.
15 and a half years, he got sober. Then he started going to the jails, the prisons, and starting the A groups and helping people get off alcohol and addiction just like he had done.
Aww.
So the last 15 years, that was his life. And the last conversation that I had with him, where he was coherent, the last conversation, he was trying to get me to go into the jails with him and speak to the guys in jail. And at this point, I'm still in the rap world. And I'm like, we trying to stay out of jail. Like, I'm not going to jail. I was like, Dad, I hear you there, but I'm not trying to go in there, So, but he was always picking on me. He was like, man, I can't get anybody to go in there with me. He's like, everybody that would go into jail to speak to these guys got criminal records and they won't let in there to speak. And he said, and the ones that can, like me, just wouldn't go in there.
Yeah.
That was the last
know
conversation.
About prison ministry until there's a museum in Washington, D.C. called the Bible Museum.
Yeah.
And they have a whole exhibit on prison ministry. And I went with my cousin. She grew up as a mission kid. Her parents took her all over the world doing mission work. And she said that her parents did a lot of prison ministry all over the world. And I'm super close with her, and I never knew that. And I never even knew that that was a thing. And ever since then, I've heard a lot about it and how it's actually changing people's lives. And they can, when they do get out, they have a new direction.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. So your dad probably helped.
Oh yeah,
he
sent me in that direction.
Yeah.
He sent me in that direction too, and it's kind of crazy because now I'll go into those places now, and I'm thinking, well, and Dad never got to see this because I wasn't doing this when he was alive. Matter of fact, a big prison in Florida, federal prison, the biggest one in Florida, I spoke at, and they reached out to me a couple weeks ago, and they worked it out with the warden to pipe in the motivation. There's motivation on Monday now, and they're piping it into every single cell on Monday,
wow.
the videos. So man, I was like, man, God, God is good. It's kind of crazy. I went from, not wanting to go in there to now I'm in there, you know what I mean?
So flip it around, you look at it like it's a house.
Yeah.
That's a house that's occupied, right?
That's right.
And it's only dangerous if you're not dangerous enough to be in there.
That's right.
And one of my favorite lines is, I walk with the power of God, I will mess you up.
That's right.
So when you get
in. That's right.
When you walk in there, it's respect the house.
Right.
Deliver messages. It's a lot of people.
I wasn't really worried about the people in there, to be honest. I was worried about them not letting me back out.
Back out?
You know what I mean? Like
tough
the people
man.
in there.
The walls, when that door shuts, it's like, whoa.
Like I remember, like about a year and a half ago before COVID, I had been asked to speak over there, so I went over to the one in Florida, and I knew so many in there. There were a bunch of rappers that I had produced for, and they were like, "Oh, I've been in here 6 years. What are you doing in here?" And so and so I seen from high school, like and half the people had been listening to me when I was in the rap world. They didn't really know that I had made the change, but they knew me from the old life. So that was kind of instant rapport with them. Going in there, those guys, they're not just gonna take it from anybody. They got to know somebody that's been in the world.
Put work in.
Yeah. But 2007, my life changed. I was in the music business from that sophomore year all the way to my dad died, which was the end of 2007. And I chased that music world aggressively. That 120 beast mode I talk about now, I was 120 beast mode in the enemy's work. Using my mouth for destruction and just tearing up the clubs and stuff, doing the negativity. And I was successful at it. Very successful. I had songs on Billboard, produced for multi-gold and platinum mags, had my own radio show. But there was still an emptiness though. On the inside, the world tells us, if you get the cars, you get the house, you get the money, you get the women, like then it'll all quiet. Like the inside voice will, quiet. But it didn't. It just got bigger and bigger.
It just makes more noise.
Yeah, it just got bigger, and it kept me from really dealing with the problems on the inside. In the music world that I come from, there's big entourages. Like we had a big entourage, and looking back at it, I understand why I had that big entourage. That way, I was never alone, and I never had to deal with anything on the inside. I always had a reason not to deal with it because people were around me, and I knew most of the people around me weren't really there for me. They weren't there for me. They were there for what I was doing and, what that meant. Yeah. My phone would ring 70, 80 times a day. What time we going to the club? Can you put me on the VIP list? Can I ride in a limo? Things like that. And I really didn't mind because it just assured me that I was never alone. But to make the progress, sometimes we got to deal with the hard stuff, right? In 2007, I get a call in the middle of the night. My uncle calls and he's like, your daddy's had a stroke and it's not looking good. You need to get up to Alabama right away. So 12 days later, my dad at this point had been getting better, coming out of the stroke, and I thought I was actually going to get him out of the hospital. But I go in on a Sunday to see him, and the doctor comes in and he's like, look, your dad's doing better. We think we're going to get him out of here. But what we've got to do today is get him out of the bed, into the wheelchair, and roll him outside to get some sunlight because he's been in bed 12 days. The longer he stays in his bed with the stroke, the less likely he's going to get out. So me and the nurse grabbed my dad out of the bed, lifted him up, put him in a wheelchair. And that's when my life changed. We didn't know it at the time, and nobody knew it, but from him sitting there 12 days, he had a blood clot in his leg. So as soon as we moved him, the blood pressure changed,
killed him dead,
dislodged, and it went right to his lungs. He started struggling breathing. 10 minutes later, he's gone. And I saw it all. Yeah, I saw it all. I'm sitting right there, the transition, the eyes, everything, watched him struggle to breathe. And that was too much because I'm thinking, I go in on a Sunday, it's a beautiful day. I'm like, okay, my dad's getting, I'm trying to keep the positive mindset that they had raised me with. Because both him and my mom, even though my dad had struggles, when he was sober, that's all we spoke was positivity. And it seemed, run contradiction with him struggling with the alcohol. But when he was sober, it was straight positivity. Champion, I'm a winner. We don't lose. Losing is not an option. That was the house I came from. No matter what you do, we the champion. So to go through this and see my dad like that and watch him just pass away right in front of me and not be able to do anything, it was life changing. It was traumatic. 2 days later, I got sent on this journey to do what I'm doing today. My ministry, my motivational artist career started at the funeral home, of all places. Funeral home. I never would think that would be where everything started for me, but that's where it started. So I go to a funeral home that my grandmother had set up for the burial arrangements, and we go in and sit in front of the table, and the funeral director, he says, your grandmother's bought 4 burial plots for the family, and I want to show you where we're gonna lay your daddy. So we walk outside to the lots, and at this point in time, my granddad is already gone in his 80s. He passed away. My grandmother's still living. So we're sitting out there, and he's like, here's your granddaddy, God rest his soul. Here's where your grandmother will go when she transpires. Here's where we're gonna bury your daddy. And on this 4th plot, here's where you gonna lay.
Oh.
He said it just like that. Here's where you gonna lay. And man, I if there's ever been some words that hit me like a ball bat on the inside, I'm a rapper, artist, poet, so words mean a lot. I've never felt the words like that man when he said, here's where you gonna lay. Because I knew what it meant now. Like seeing, my dad transpire the way he did and pass on the way he did. When he said, here's where you gonna lay, I knew what that meant. Now, it's crazy thing about it, being in the gangster world, I was from the thug life, I had already buried probably 20-something friends between shootings, ODs, car wrecks, all different kinds of things. But for some reason, I had compartmentalized that like we do. Like, it's really bad what happened to so-and-so, but that won't happen to me. Mm-hmm. Right? We put that cape on. We big bad gangster rappers, but that's not going to happen to us, right? Like in the world I'm from, there's 2 movies that represent that whole way of life. Godfather and Scarface, right? But Scarface, we love that movie up to the intermission. And that's it. Like where he's counting the money, ding, ding, and it said, the world is yours. Yeah. And then we stop and start the movie over because we don't want to go to the ending. The ending is where he's dying in the pool. We don't want to talk about that part of it. So that's kind of the lifestyle I was living. And this man had just robbed me. He said, here's where you gonna lay. And I couldn't run from it. So we walked from there back into his office. It was like God was teaching me a lesson right here. This is where like the message had started to unfold and him to teach me, to send me on his calling. So I get back into the funeral home, and the guy slides 2 pieces of paper across the table for me that changed me. He said, on this piece of paper, on this one, I need you to take 2 to 3 sentences, sum up your daddy's whole life in 2 to 3 sentences for the headstone. And then on this piece of paper, I need you to sum up your daddy's life in 2 to 3 paragraphs because we're going to put this in the newspaper, the obituary. Now I'm thinking, okay, 2 to 3 sentences. How do you sum up a man's whole life up in 2 to 3 sentences, right? And then how do I do it in the paragraphs? What would my daddy want me to say, right? And as I was thinking that, my mind was still at the gravesite. Here's where you gonna lay. Here's where you gonna lay. Here's where you gonna lay, right? That just kept cycling. And then I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, I'm not the smartest, bulb on the tree, but here's where I'm gonna lay, and I'm doing this for my dad with the obituary and the headstone, sooner or later, somebody's gonna be doing this about me. Right? And I was like, okay, if I was to die right now, what would they put on these two? And I didn't like the answer.
Depends on how you get in there too, huh?
Right. But I didn't like the answer. Like, that was really where I started I was alone here in this moment. Remember I told you in the entourage, I had cover. Like, I didn't have to deal with this stuff. Now it's just me and the funeral director. Ain't no running. It's like, now, if this is your life right now, if you died right now, what would you put on this and what would go in this? And I thought about it, I was like, here lies a man that, would run over anybody and do anything to get that next dollar. That's all that mattered. Success, didn't care about anybody. It was only, could you help me? Can you help me get the next dollar, or help me get to the next level? Or how do I get this next show? You know what I mean? Like, this was my mindset. I really didn't care at all. Mm-hmm. In that world, you just kind of become numb. I'd been hurt so many times growing up. I just shut the walls down emotionally and said, it's all about me now. Nobody cares anyway. I'm put this wall up and I'm just going to go get mine. And then they'll have to respect me. They'll listen to me, whatever, that we think we're going to get from that lifestyle that we never get. But this man just said, here's where you're going to lay. And I had to address it. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do for here, but I know something's got to change. And then 2 days later, the next part of the lesson happened. I'm at the wake, and people are beginning to come up and talk about my daddy. And I got to see what he had been doing the last 15 years of his life when he was helping people. He never talked about what he did when he helped people. He'd just say, I'm going to help a friend. Like, the phone ring at 1 o'clock at night, he'd say, I got to go help a friend. My daddy was a good man, so we didn't worry about him doing anything shady. So we knew he was going to help somebody in the program. But he never mentioned anything else about it. But when I'm at the wake, I began to find out what really my daddy had been doing. So the first guy comes up and he's like, your daddy came and got me on the side of the road. I was drunk. I had 2 strikes already. And he came and got me on the side of the road. Cop was going to take me to jail if your daddy didn't come get me. So your daddy came and got me and helped me out. And I've been sober 3 years now because of your daddy. Another one came up and said, I was in jail. They were throwing away the key on me. My family had given up on me. Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would even take my phone call. Your daddy came and bailed me out with his own money at 4 a.m. Right? A couple came up and they said, we were at the kitchen table about to file divorce, and your daddy said, don't do it. And we've been married 10 years since. Right? Now, I'm sitting up there and I'm listening to all this, and it's not what I'm hearing that's bothering me. It's what I'm not hearing. Like, I'm not hearing any of them people, when they come up and say something about my daddy, talk about one thing that I'm chasing in my life right now. I'm getting up every day, living and dying for the next dollar, the next this, the next that. And nobody's talking about that at the end. They're not up there saying, well, man, your daddy sure could make it rain. Like, what I mean? Or he had a nice Rolex. Or look at your daddy's rims. Like, nobody was talking about the stuff that I'm getting up every day. And I'm like, dodging bullets to get this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all that stuff doesn't mean anything. And I realized, at that point in time, like, I had it all wrong. And I realized life was about legacy, and our only purpose to be here really is to leave this place better than we found it. I realized that right there. Now, God's not against us having things and owning nice things, but he's against those things owning us. Mm-hmm. And at this point in time, that stuff on me, that lifestyle on me, that illusion that, I would have peace and fulfillment through that world. And I made a vow right then. I'm like, I'm going to change this. I don't know how. Like, I hadn't got to that part yet, but I realized, okay, stuff has got it. That's why I hit my rock bottom. I was like, okay, enough is enough. Draw the line right here. I'm going to make a difference somehow. I don't know what I'm going to do. At this point in time, I hadn't learned that you could say positive stuff on the mic.
Yeah.
For some reason, like, when I saw people on the mic, I knew it one way. It was gangsta, and that was it. Like, that was the only thing you could say on the mic. I didn't realize you could.
Somebody having a problem doing something, yes.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could get on here and say something positive to somebody and so live. I just thought when you got on
works.
here. Yeah,
And it works.
Exactly. I for some reason, that just did not click. So from that point on, I'm like, I'm getting out of music. I'm retiring, and I'm going to do what God tells me to. I don't know what that is. I don't know how that is, but I'm going to do it from this point forward.
You think that's the thing with a lot of the guys coming up in the rap game is that if they don't sing about anything negative, then no one listens to them?
Right, that's what they told us. They said nobody want to listen to that positive stuff.
Yeah, right?
Nobody will pay you for that. Nobody's gonna do
And
that.
we listen to this music for positivity,
Right.
so we only listen to this for bad stuff.
That's right.
That's horrible, right?
That's why I bought into that lie. Man, I've been 10 times more successful since I left that world, but the enemy had me caught in that lie, thinking I couldn't do positivity. And it's the world is so upside down too. It's like we don't have any problem paying $100 to go see, a person like me back in the day, a gangster rapper talking about crack and cocaine and shooting our neighbor and everything else. We don't have any problem paying $100 for that. But somebody doing something positive for it, we would have a problem. Like, they supposed to do that for free. Like, it doesn't make no sense. It doesn't make no sense. The world is completely upside down.
You paying to hear somebody complain to you?
Yeah.
Well, that's the enemy at work.
No wonder you're in a
Exactly.
bad mood all the time.
Exactly. I heard somebody complaining the other day about, some guy I look up to. I don't want to mention names, but they were complaining because this guy, had a Ferrari or something. They're like, oh, he's supposed to be broke. He's helping people. And I'm like, y'all didn't have any problem paying $100 to these rappers, man, to say the garbage and destroy communities. But you got a problem with this man going out there and sowing his life every day and sowing life over the world. Something's wrong with that. These are the ones that should be rewarded, the ones that are helping and making the world a better place, not the ones that are tearing it down.
We talk about that too. It's like, what if the guy you saw in the big house with the Ferrari, he had that because of how wonderful he was to his people.
Right,
They
right.
He's so
rewarded him.
valued.
Yeah. There's no money.
Right,
You got
right.
rewarded for how good
Right,
you were.
exactly.
And you see people driving around like he must be a solid dude. 'Cause
Exactly.
They gave him that car.
The enemy has the world, turned upside down by design.
Sure.
And that lie kept me in bondage, for 17 years. I thought, well, because I started to change. I actually started diving into books around, 2000, right in the middle of my music. I started really diving into books and studying philosophy and the mindset and, about champions and greatness. So then I started having a tug of war going on the inside. Like all day I'm reading some of the, I'd be in a bookstore all day. I started just doing this habit 2-3 days, 2-3 hours a day. I'd be in there taking notes, reading this positive stuff that I had gravitated toward. And at nighttime, I'm in the club saying the complete opposite of what I just read. Mm-hmm. So when I get to about 2005 and 6, I had this war going on inside. I was like, I don't even believe these words I'm saying anymore, but this is my lifestyle and this is the way I'm getting my money. But I don't believe the words anymore that I'm saying.
Well, you started hearing them.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a difference.
Right. Once you have some truth in you, you can't be the same.
You
Yeah,
won't say that other stuff.
Yeah,
'cause
exactly.
It hurts you to say it.
Exactly.
Not hurt somebody else. It hurts you to say it.
Exactly. It just, I was at war with myself at that point in time. So, I mean, even before my dad died, I could see now looking back, God was already preparing me for the mission and the calling. I just didn't see it. Mm-hmm. And from that wake forward, I knew I needed to make a change. But before we make a change or before we step in the calling, there's always going to be warfare, right? The enemy knows now, okay, like when I was working for him, the enemy, to be honest, the enemy really didn't attack me much when I was doing the negativity. Because it was like I was working for him, stay away from him, he's working for me. But the moment I said, no, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to step into what God's called me to do. I'm going to pursue this greatness. I'm going to do, positive things for the world. That's when the war really jumped off. Because then I become a threat to him. So he's got to attack what he fears, right? The enemy only attacks that which he fears, right? So I started.
You can't live in it.
Right. I started getting attacked the moment my dad died in front of me in the emergency room. I had my first full-blown panic attack. When he died, I thought, when the doctor came in and said, finally, I'd already seen him die in the room, but the doctors had rushed me out trying to resuscitate him, but I already knew the answer. But a few minutes later, they came into the emergency room and said, we got bad news for you. Your dad is gone. And when they told me that, I had my first full-blown panic attack. I literally fell on the floor, and I thought I was going to die. I remember in my mind saying, my grandmother's about to lose me and my daddy on the same day. My mind was playing tricks on me, thinking I was going to die. And from that point forward, for the next 7 years, panic attacks, PTSD, anxiety, debilitating anxiety took over my life. I started having 1 panic attack a day, 2 panic attacks a day, 4 panic attacks a day, to the whole day having a panic attack or expecting to have one. It's like my mind was trying to protect me from what it had seen with my daddy, and here's where I'm gonna lay, right? So I'm thinking, okay, this is what's gonna happen to me. I'm gonna struggle breathing, and I'm gonna, have a stroke and have a heart attack just like my daddy did. So anytime I would get like a twitch on my arm or just, normal stuff, boom, my mind would trigger that panic. Like, I can't breathe. And it would be so frightening on the inside, taking over my mind, that I'd run to the hospital. I ran to the hospital like 12 times in 9 months thinking I was going to die.
That's crazy.
I had said my last words 30 something times. Like thinking I'm gonna die, just like my dad. My dad tried to say a few last words when he was dying. So when I thought I was dying, I turned to whoever's with me, hey, I'm sorry, I love y'all, I'm thinking that's where I'm at. 30 something times I thought this was it. So, life had a new perspective after that. I gotten up every day and took breathing for granted. Mm-hmm. We don't think about breathing. You get up and you just breathe. But now every breath, meant something to me. But the panic attacks and the PTSD began to close in. I went from being on stage rapping in front of 20,000 people to being locked up in the corner in my bedroom for 2 weeks at a time. Like, I don't know if you ever seen that movie Aviator about Howard Hughes. You remember how he locks himself up in the room? That was me right there. Not the milk cans, but that was me. Yeah, that was me. Like, stay here, don't leave. Because, when you have panic attacks, I never control when I had them. They would just, let's say you were talking about, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? They died. Boom, my mind, 5 minutes from now, it would trigger. And I'd have that panic attack, because it heard something that scared it. And I didn't control when I had it. Like, I'd be in the Walmart line, have the panic attack, had to rush home. I'd be at Chili's about to order food with my wife. Boom, I had the panic attack, had to rush home.
So what is that? Is that your body, your brain walking without your body? It feels exposed or something?
It was trying to protect me. Right, it was trying to protect me, but I had no control, and I couldn't shut it off and say, "Look, I'm fine." Like, it was trying to protect me, but my mind just would not settle down. I'd be in the back of the church. I'd always sit in the back row of the church because I'd have a panic attack, and I need to get out and to go to the bathroom or whatever, try to get out of the church. So it was straight warfare for the next 7 years, and that's what I learned. Wherever you can grow, thrive, or multiply, the enemy is going to attack. There's going to be warfare over that position, and the greater the resistance, the greater the destiny.
Yeah.
So the more he was coming at me, I didn't realize this. The more he was coming at me was because he knew what God was about to do to send me out here and
that turns that into ammunition and fuel for yourself.
Right. Exactly.
That's when you get that gift.
Exactly.
Like when that's hard stuff coming down on you, you're like, oh well, then there's something on the backside of it here.
Right.
So the harder you hit me, the more powerful you make me.
Exactly. Now, it didn't start out that way. Now,
I
had to learn. You learn to
that.
fight.
Yeah,
you learn as you go on. Like, through those years, I learned. Like, in the beginning, I was just taking all the punches. But as I began to, learn how to manage the attacks as they came, I began to get stronger.
Yeah.
And really, it helps me now.
A fighter, the more punches you take, the stronger fighter.
Yeah, exactly.
The more weight you lift, the stronger you get.
Right.
Pressure on the outside and the life that when life puts its pressure on you, you don't ever get battle weakened. You get battle hardened.
That's right.
You can get weak in the battle. Don't get me wrong. I've been whipped bad. I'm on my face begging for mercy, right? That's a true fact.
Right.
But don't let me stand back up, because when that happens, it's locked in.
It's on.
Yeah, right?
That's
when you feel it, you're like,
it was on. And
did you have somebody coaching you out of it?
I tried everything because it was horrific.
Like,
it was like,
it
was for horrific. So, first thing I did after I buried my dad 2 weeks later, I came back to Florida, and that week I went back to church for the first time in 25 something years. Got rebaptized. Every time they opened the doors of church, I was there. And I was, to be honest, I was broke. I was broken to a million pieces. I felt like on the inside, and I also felt like at that moment that my dad died, the mic got ripped away from me. Like, I'd been speaking when I had troubles, like when I was telling you with my dad growing up, that was my go-to, my outlet was the mic. Good or bad, what I was saying, it was still my outlet. I felt like when he died, the mic was ripped, and I also didn't see the mic the same way, so I didn't have an outlet anymore to fight back. This is the only way I knew how to fight back in the old days. How do I do it now? And I struggled those 7 years trying to find that way, like you say, how do I hit? How do I hit something in here? In martial arts, I was trained to hit an external opponent, but I wasn't really trained to how to go inside and fight me. Like,
that's
how
the
to,
body.
yeah.
Spend the first part training there are people down here that do that. It's separated. So people spend their whole life training their mind.
Right.
People spend their whole life training their body.
Right.
But both of those ways train the other one.
Right.
Right. Now, and then once you level up, that's when your spirit gets dropped in because they have to work. They work together. They're independent.
That's right.
The heart's different, separate. The tongue is separate from everything else. Kind of like has its own deal. That's why the most powerful thing is when that word comes out. When it's grinding in here, that's one thing. The minute you spit it out, then it becomes real.
That's right.
And you notice the pressure leaves too.
Death and life in the power of the tongue.
Marcus grew up doing karate too. I don't know if you knew that about him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he also grew up in the dojo.
And that's what's so important about the pass down.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think way back in the day, the way all this stuff got confusing is because somebody died or somebody didn't take the time to pass it down.
That's right.
The most dangerous thing down here is an undisciplined human mind. You put that in a child, and a child that can grow into something terrifying, well, then that's obviously where a break had to happen generations back. One of them did get trained up.
That's right.
And then came up with his own idea and then imposed it through the physical will. But the body and the spirit and everything around here has its own way of saying, okay, we're going to do it this way, the hard way, then we'll still get it done. Because we'll only kill each other so far till you realize, you know what, man, that hurts. Let's do it this way.
Right.
It fixes itself.
Right.
We can willfully do it, or you can just sit there and take it till she'll correct it. You know, Mother Earth and God. And it's kind of.
I remember having a rude awakening when I got down to South Florida. Like the first month I was there, as we mentioned about martial arts, me and my dad had been training for years, and trained in all this controlled environment. Like back then we had the 20 by 20 ring or whatever it was.
Oh, that's a big difference when you get out.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm in that ring, when we train every day, and it's like your opponent be on that side, I'm over here, referee over here, and he's like, "Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3," and then we would spar, right? Like in a controlled environment. When I got to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, I'm walking through the mall one day, and I find out that's not how the real world works. Down there is gangs and a whole nother world that I knew nothing about. And I'm walking through the mall within the first month I'm there, and all of a sudden I just get blindsided. Boom. Like I'm 14 years old or whatever, and I just get, swung on by a 20-something-year-old gangster. They thought I was in some other gang. I wasn't, but I just happened to be wearing a certain shirt or colors, and I hadn't been there long enough not to know, that I shouldn't wear it. And I'm looking up from the bottom of the floor of the mall, saying, what just happened? And I went back to my dad. I was like, we got to train different. Like, he didn't say, hold on, are you ready? 1, 2, 3 before he swung at me. He just swung at me, right? Like, that's not how we've been training. So, and with this situation with my daddy, it was the same way. Life is going along. Everything is, so-called good and safe and comfortable. And boom, life hits me with a brick. And now I've got to figure out how to get up off the mat. And I had went to every counselor, therapist, psychologist, doctor, pastor, grief share, Christian counselor in my city. I'd went to 6 or 7 therapists from Harvard and Yale to the local community college, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. Nothing could get my mind to just calm down. Nothing could do it. And I basically, over that 7-year period, lost everything that I had put up in the music business. Like I had businesses everywhere through the city and stuff put up from the music, money put up. But every day it was like my money was getting a little bit less because I couldn't really work. I wasn't in the clubs anymore. I couldn't even go into my businesses and watch them. I'd go in for 1 hour, have a panic attack in the store, and have to run back home. So I did everything I knew how to do to get better. But it just was not clicking. No matter what they said, I just didn't feel like I connected with the therapist. I feel like they were just there for the money. I guess an hour,
Sure. If you don't, maybe that's a never-ending well right there.
Yeah, it's like we keep them here for 2 or 3 years, and I'm going through hell. Literally, 10 minutes is a lifetime when you're worrying about breathing.
Sure, that's what Mike Tyson's like. Everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face.
Right.
And then even when you're out, the only way to resolve some of that is to take a breath.
Right.
It's like you couldn't get any better because you didn't even know what better was.
Nothing.
Like if you go underwater without taking a breath, like on the exhalation, you're going down. Yeah, you can go a long way.
Right.
You can do a lot of stuff, but then when it starts coming undone, it starts coming undone quick.
Quick.
So if you build that cycle up and the way you're doing it now, that positive, it's a brick by brick thing. It's like you can scare people into loving you, but once they're not afraid of you, then that's gone.
Right.
But if you come in there on the back end like, hey man, I just came here to bleed for you, take as much pain. You take pain for people, and they'll get out of your way.
Right.
That's the respect that the blessing I have is my ability to take pain for other people, because most people don't want to do it.
Amen.
So when you notice that when you know someone will do that for you, and then they won't say anything else, it's open to. I never knew that was the case, because if you throw attitude on top of it, then they're like that. But if you stay humble, then that's and it's hard, man.
Amen.
Because the fights get more intense. You ain't never been whipped, man. You ain't fighting the right people.
Right.
That's the only way you're gonna learn something about yourself, man. And then when, all of a sudden it's kind of like they keep stepping on you and stepping on you. I've been to the point where I was on my face, felt like they were jerking my back out from me, like in your mind.
Right.
And then you get to the point where you're like, all right, that's just enough, right? And take that deep breath, and when you come up, it's different.
Right.
I
I
mean,
was
when it
seeking
felt
to
to me,
find
yeah.
that other breath, like you were saying. It just kept eluding me.
Yeah.
And
It's like breathing, just like short breath in it your whole life.
right. That's it.
When did you find your breath?
It got so bad that I had forgot what it was like to not have this. I unlearned normalcy. You know what I mean? Like you have it so much that you forget what it was like to get up a day without having to struggle with this. And I had tried everything, 4 or 5 years. I had kind of attacked therapy like I did the music grind. Like I'm gonna grind real hard, like I did with the music. I'm gonna hustle and get my name big. Well, I tried to do that in therapy. Like I'm gonna hustle real hard.
It
to
doesn't
get
work that
better.
way. It's obvious.
It doesn't work that way.
That's the whole point, right?
Right.
To slow down the grind.
Right. So about 4th or 5th year in, I started really questioning what I was ever going to get out of it. The enemy's telling me this is going to be your life. You're mine now, and the way your daddy struggled, this is what's going to happen to you. Here's where you're going to lay, and this is all you got forward to look forward to is this type of living. And I finally started doing this one thing every day that changed me and changed my life and set me on the course to victory. And I started it out of anger and desperation, but it was the thing that unlocked everything else. So once I had stopped running to the hospital every time I got a panic attack, instead of going, once a week, I was going once every 3 weeks now, 4 weeks. I'm still going, but not unless it's really bad. When these panic attacks would come on me, I would put my shoes on, walk out the door, and walk around my 1 mile square block in my neighborhood. I had a 1 mile square block. And with all this anxiety going, the first 4 or 5 years, I try to sit still and calm it down, which you can't, because it's like the engine is just racing in you and you're trying not to go anywhere. So when I got about 4 or 5 years in, I'm like, I got to get this energy out. So when the panic attacks would come on, I put my shoes on and I go out the door and walk this block to kind of get it out of me. Now, first thing I do when I hit the block, because I'm out there having a panic attack, is I start screaming at God at this point, because I'm mad. Now the anger is starting to come out from the situation. The beginning part, the first 4 or 5 years, it was depression, it was guilt, it was sadness, all this stuff, right? Now I'm mad though, because I'm like, I'm praying to you every day, Lord. I'm in church. I'm not doing what I used to do. Everybody's abandoned me. I'm alone. And I'm praying every single day, are you real? Do you hear me? I prayed yesterday to get better, and I'm worse today. Like, why is this happening? So I'd go out there on that block, and I would just start talking to God. The first part of the block, I'm yelling and cussing at him, mad. Just like, you don't care. You're not real. All the different emotions. Then when I get to the end of that block, I make a left, and then all of a sudden guilt would come on. It was like a different emotion. As soon as I turned left, it was like a totally different emotion that would come on me. And the guilt was, you killed your daddy. If you hadn't moved him so fast that day in the nursing home, if you'd done it slower, you'd done something different, right? That wouldn't have happened. You're a killer, and what you doing out here praying to God anyway? You should be praying to me, And then when I get to the end of that street and make the left, then I went completely numb and don't even remember that side. It'd just be like, shut off. And I just kind of be like a zombie walking. And then I come back inside the house. And I do this 4 or 5 times a day. Every time the panic attacks would come on, put my shoes on, go out there and start talking to God. And I know the neighbors thought I was crazy. They see me out there talking and be like, look, we see Billy out there talking to himself. He done lost his mind. We heard about it, right?
There's that Billy guy again. Here he goes.
But the thing is, I really had lost my mind. But in order to find yourself, sometimes you have to lose yourself.
Of course.
And I was losing bits and bits by me.
How do you know how truly happy you are unless you've been truly miserable, right?
That's right. That's right. And out on that block, the struggle, what I say now in these videos, the struggle made me. Like they say, what's the greatest gift? It was that struggle. Because without it, I don't do what I'm doing now. And I had to go through it. And what I didn't realize then was the struggle I was going through. At this time, I'm so self-focused. Like, help me, help me, help me. Not realizing the struggle wasn't about me. I needed to learn the language of the struggle in order to go out and help people going through the struggle. Like if I hadn't been through the struggle, I can't come into a room and talk to somebody who's going through it. They're gonna say, you don't understand me. Like we can't talk the same language.
And it shuts it down right there.
It shuts it down. And like the rap world I was from, like, you know, there would be rappers or whatever, you know, trying to rap gangster, but they weren't from that world. And we'd be like, you don't know nothing about this world, man.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like walking into a therapist who's 24. Right? When you've been around, you sit down and they're like, how are you going to help me again?
Right.
And
that actually happened.
You got to
too.
put some experience.
That actually happened. I know that.
Yeah, I'm like, man, you know, I understand what you're saying to me. I read that same book.
Right, exactly.
I need some life experience to come through with it as well, because what that does is it lends from 0 to 40, you have an opinion, then your perspective sets in, and then you get wisdom.
Exactly.
Right, and then understanding all that, right? So when you're going through the struggle, it's like the first 40 years, darkness, right?
Right.
Don't look at it like anything other than a lesson, like class.
Right.
And now people are like, well, you know, this happens. Like, well, the life is a lesson in itself. And you can get twisted up in it, especially when you start focusing on other people's crap.
That's right.
You bring that in on top of you, that's why your world gets twisted. It's not supposed to be there. Like if you can't worry about that problem, don't worry about it. If you're going to worry about it, let's solve the problem. It's not going to be a problem anymore. Either way, you fix it.
Amen.
So sometimes it's overthinking, I think.
Mm-hmm. I sure did a lot of overthinking.
Yeah, it's overthinking.
I sure did a lot of overthinking. I was out on that block and I found myself out there alone, one-on-one with God. I just found it. And when I say God, I don't mean religion. I'm talking about relationship. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. You know, religion never freed anybody. Relationship is what does it. That's where the power is. You know, and I was out there one-on-one. And at this point, see, I'm in a state of desperation. That was the invitation that God needed. See, God's all powerful, but he needs our invitation to come in.
That's what willpower
right.
It's like he gives that to you, then it's like your parent, any other parent. You want help, ask for it.
Right. and
if you want to take care of that problem, you can take care of it yourself.
Right. I tried.
Right? Or you can step back and let him do it.
I tried everything because in that world I was so used to, you know, nobody giving me anything in the music world and having to earn it, having to take it, having to grind, that I didn't want to ask. You know, with like asking is weakness. You know, it's a weakness. But at this point, I think God had to rip away all those old mindsets and things like that in order to make me useful.
Sure.
As long as I had that pride that I was walking around with, I wasn't going to be able to come out and do what I do now. Like I had to be removed so that he could do his thing.
That's the rub too. It's like, that pride comes in with other people.
Right.
You're talking about trying to be prideful with God and asking something, where does that even come from?
Exactly.
That don't even make sense.
Right. It don't have no
place.
place.
You can't attitude that way. It's like, you do your work, what you're supposed to do, you get taught. And that's something.
Right.
There is something to that.
That's right.
But then when you feel that, like, man, I don't want to ask for nothing, you know, like, well, that's just silly.
The Bible says that God wants you to ask. I mean, it's
you have not because you ask not.
Yeah, you have to ask.
Yeah. I don't ask for anything.
And you have
I'm
to
the world's
ask.
worst at that.
Right.
I'm like, I got it. I'll do it.
Right.
I got it.
The macho. Yeah, we train like that. I mean, that's how we're raised, really.
Yeah, then you're like, well, I figure he got other stuff to deal with. I'll just take care of mine. So he's just like, oh, you're always asking me for something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can feel like that. I was like, well,
you have to ask and give thanks.
Right.
You can't just ask.
Right.
That comes with learning in life.
Amen.
You say that to a 9-year-old, it means it's something different to a 13-year-old, to a 20-year-old. It changes. So ultimately, what you need to know is, man, this is a journey and adventure. Have fun on it.
Amen.
The minute you're going down in the wrong place where you're ruining that, then you're in the wrong place. We're talking about there's a difference between when you know truth and fact. Like when you walk into a room and everyone's laughing, having a great time.
Right.
Everything, the truth is out there. You can feel it. Because you'll know when somebody says something that's not true, that even if they don't, they'll stop laughing. They can't help it. The body all does.
Right.
And then you know what I'm talking about?
Right. The truth has a vibration to
Right,
it,
it's a
man.
tone, a vibration. It's
Yeah.
like you can feel the energy. So when it pipes up like that, you're just like, man, you yearn for a good time. But death brings it too. Death will draw a circle fast.
Oh, yeah.
Hate, loud noise, all that. It's just that curiosity and whatever drives that in. I was guilty of it too. I mean, look what I turned out to be. I mean, at that age we were at, that 90s time frame into the 2000s, man, that was a huge shift. I was like, we just got kicked off in the opposite direction and had to claw our way back. Like, you really want to belong to this family?
To signing up for the military and then 9/11.
Yeah, 20 years of war.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We were geared for it.
Right.
I mean, warriors are, born for the struggle.
Amen.
So can't deny that if you know what you're made to be.
That's right.
And then you get past it, you look back at it, and like, man, I say the same thing. I don't know if I could have done that. You did do it.
Right. It's the identity, man.
I did do it, man. I get it's something. It's life. It can lean on you. Sure it can. Because if you're not doing what it wants you to do, it'll lean on you to make you stronger.
Right.
Everything bad happened to me too. I always looked at it that, and then coming back, I was like, was my father bad? Because I have a great life, and everyone seems to be happy with the way I turned out.
Amen.
So how could I throw one thing at him?
Right. The end result is what matters, right?
Yeah, I was always worried about the middle, I guess.
Right. That middle ground.
That middle ground, right?
When did you find the mic for positivity?
Right after that time I'm telling you about on the block, I got to the end of me, and finally I just cried out to God on the block. I said, look, I've tried everything that I know how to do, and it's not working. And I can't see daylight. It looks like this is gonna be the rest of my life. And I said, if you don't heal me, I'm done. And I know that I've tried everything. I'm exhausted. I don't know if you've ever in your life felt this way, but I was completely emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually done. Like there wasn't an ounce left in me. And I said, Lord, I don't have anything left to fight, nothing. I said, if you don't heal me, I'm done. And I don't have anything to give you. Because at this point in time, my money's gone, the friends are gone, everything around me has been ripped, the business, the name, music, all of that is gone. It's just me and God out there. And I said, I was like, if you don't heal me, I'm done. And I ain't got nothing to give you but this. If you heal me, this is the deal I made with God. If you heal me, I'll go out and tell him who did it. That's it. And that was the invitation right there. And I think God was waiting on me to say, please come in. Please come in. And a couple days later, after I had made that deal, my mother calls me. And she says, son, you're beating yourself up and you're killing yourself, with the guilt and the depression and all that. You're killing yourself. I hate to see you like this. She's like, will you do something for me? She said, will you go get a punching bag, put it up in the backyard and beat out some of that frustration? Because I was beating myself up on the inside. She's like, you got to get that out or it's gonna hurt you. So I did what she said, went got the bag, got some new set of gloves, went out there in the back like Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, right? Bouncing around. This was the first time though I'd ever got my heart up racing, because I never did after my dad died, was struggling with breathing. I always made sure I was even keel, because I was like, if I get too, excited, I might have a heart attack, right? It was just something mental. So I'm out there and I bounce around, I hit the bag twice. I go boom, boom, panic attack, because I got my heart racing. So I run back inside. Nobody's at home at this point. About to go to the emergency room again, because it's really bad mentally. So I call my mom on the phone and I'm like, I just want to let you know I'm going to the emergency room. Just want you to know where I'm going, because nobody's home. I'm having a heart attack, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling her all this stuff. And at this point in time, she knew I wasn't having a heart attack, because I had these so much, she knew. So she did what a good mama should do at this time. She yelled at me. She did. Like, I'm talking to her and I'm like, Mom, I'm going to hospital. And she says, Billy! She yells at me, right? She said, you go back out there and hit that bag right now. And I'm like, going into my story, like, Mama, you don't understand. Nobody gets it. The therapists don't get it. The doctors don't get it. You don't get it. The wife don't get it. Nobody gets it. She yelled at me again, Billy! You go back out there and hit that bag right now. And I'm like, Mama, you don't understand. Nobody gets it. I'm trying, but nobody gets it. And she's like, well, I'll make a deal with you. You can go to the hospital after you hit that bag, but you gonna go hit that bag. I didn't raise no quitter, right? She's like, I didn't raise no quitter. You're not a quitter. You're not gonna quit with me. And I'm arguing her all the way out, but I'm going back out to the bag because you got to do what Mama said.
Sure.
Right? So I'm all the way telling her my, pity stories, poor me, all of that, all the way out to the bag. And I get out there and she's like, are you there? And I'm like, yeah. She said, well, hit the bag. So, I hit it. It's kind of like halfway. She's like, you can hit better than I hear you. Hit the bag. Make it pop. Like she was one of the ones that trained me, back in the day. So I hit it a few times. I'm talking to her, and then I switched hands, right? I'm still talking to her. But I had turned around, and done a 180 from running to the hospital and came back out to the bag, right? So by about 3 or 4 or 5 of those punches, like you said, I began to find that warrior on the inside. And I said, okay, Mama, I'm gonna call you back. And I stayed out there and just hit that bag for 30 minutes till my knuckles were bloody. That was the first time in 5 years that I had stood up to the panic attacks. The first time, it was like the bully had got my lunch money for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And one day I was like, not today, right? My mama helped me turn me back around. I said, you gonna fight the bully today? Mm-hmm. And I beat it. So I was like 1 win and 10,000 losses. But I had a win. Had 1 win, right? And I knew okay, the enemy can be beat. It was kind of like Mike Tyson when he was 31-0. Nobody thought, he could be beat. But once he got that first loss, it was like 4 or 5 beat him later because they thought it was possible, right? And at this point in time, I didn't think it was possible to beat the panic attacks, but now I knew different.
Sure.
So the next time that came on, I'm like, the bully's coming to me, I want your lunch money. I'm like, well, we're going to have to fight today, right? I started to fight back. Now, it took 2.5 years for me to get back full function. So I might just win 2 or 3 hours a day that day, fight it back. And then I'd have let's say I got up at 8 or 9 in the morning, I'd win till 12 or 1 o'clock. I'd have normalcy a little bit. Then at 1 o'clock I'd have a panic attack. But I won the front of the day. So I'm like, okay, I won a little bit. So every day I got up and tried to win a little bit more territory and take a little bit more of my life back. And finally, I got it to where I could go back out and do some full function. And also after I had said that prayer and made that commitment to God sent me the right therapist. I've been trying to do it on my own, doing my own thing. He finally sent me the right one. And Travis, my therapist there, he was young, like you said. He was in his 30s at the time. But the man was really, really passionate about healing and therapy, right? He had just got out of school, maybe 6 months, something like that when I got into it. But he was really, really passionate. Mm-hmm. And I had a strong why. I'm trying to get better. So I was like, when I went in there first, I'm like, well, you're a lot younger than the other guys I've seen, and you're from this college, not Harvard and Yale. But I was like, you're passionate about what you do, and you actually care. I can tell you care about me. And I was like, and I want to get better. Those are winning ingredients. We can figure it out. Yeah. So we got in there for 2 years, and every week we would just get it in and deal with the stuff that I needed to deal with. And he taught me techniques that helped me get my life back. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of crazy because he was kind of the first one to say, pastor. He's like, hey, pastor, when I'd come into therapy. And I don't know, pastor. I'm no pastor. I bring my Bible with me everywhere I go. Now, I was bringing this with me because I'm fighting for my life. I'm not trying to be a pastor. I'm just like, Lord, I need you. Right? This is what I'm bringing this with me. This is like a sword, right? So he was the first one to kind of speak that over my life about being a motivational speaker. But he had put in me a seed. Now, when I'd go see him, we'd have a great session, and I would get hope, as I'm there with that hour. But when the hour's over, then I'm like, oh, I got 6 days and 23 hours before I'm going to see you again. How am I going to make it till I get back in here, right?
Like, what about Bob?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm like, how am I going to, make it to get back in here? So he was the first one to plant the seed in me. He's like, this is what I want you to do. Go on YouTube and look for some positive material, positive thinking, motivation, stuff like this. And when you start to panic, get in, anxiety, I want you to listen to this stuff. And see, he was preparing me for the call, and God was using that right there to put me on this path. And I didn't even know it. I'm just trying to get through the day to breathe. But now I'm moving one step closer and closer to my calling. and don't even realize it. See, and me and Travis got to build a great relationship, and he started teaching me about the power of the mind and how it worked and all the stuff that I teach now when I go out to seminars and stuff. I learned right there, in therapy. And I would not have learned that had I not went through the struggle and been sent on this trajectory. So years later, I'm asking God now, I'm still going out on the block every day doing my walk, but not because of panic. He brought me through it. And I'm just out there thanking him now. Mm-hmm. I didn't stop going on the block once I got my healing. I'd go out there and say, Lord, thank you. You heard me. I know you're real. Now, what do you want me to do? Now he had my attention. So I'd go out there every day and I'd be like, what's my calling? What's my calling? Because, in music, I always got up every single day and knew exactly my identity. I knew exactly who I was and what I was here to do and what I was going to do that day. Mm-hmm. But after getting out of music, I didn't have that anymore. It was just like this big void.
Especially in that type, because you got to wake up and get pissed off.
Yeah.
Or you're always pissed off. And you can sing about it, right?
Right.
Which is supposed to get it off your chest.
Right.
When you're singing for the enemy.
Right, yeah.
So I got up every day. I didn't know what to do. And the crazy thing about it was, I had stopped rapping when my dad died, but I never got rid of my studio. It was still in my living room. In my house, I had a microphone sitting dead in the middle, hanging about height, my head height almost, in the middle of the living room. It'd been there for 7-8 years, just sitting there. Now every morning, I'd get up to go out for my walk. I'd put my shoes on, kind of be looking down, and I'd start walking to the door, and I would literally bump into the mic in my head. It hit me in the head like this. I'm like, man. And I'd move the mic.
Get so much out of the way.
Right. I would move the mic away, go outside and ask God what my calling was.
Yeah.
I say, what's my calling?
Right.
Why you won't tell me what my calling is?
Most people don't pick that up. It's like they're with those big signs, like, give me some kind of sign that hits you here right in the head with it.
And then I'd come back inside from the walk and be looking down because I'd kind of be depressed coming back in, and I'd bump into the mic again. I did this for years, like 2 years before I realized the mic. Yeah. Finally I'm out there on the block one day and God moved on my spirit. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'm tired. Put me in, coach. Like, I'm ready now, right? Use me. And finally in my spirit, it was like, remember those YouTube videos? And I was like, And I started thinking back because when Travis had initially put me onto the YouTube, I would a lot of times critique the motivational stuff I was hearing like a music producer and a songwriter. Yeah. I'd be like, well, I would have done this different, or I would have changed that, or I would have done different music, like a producer's, mindset. So it came to me, it's like, remember those YouTube videos? And I was like, okay, I wonder how it would sound, speaking, doing that kind of stuff, not rap, but just speaking. I'm like, how would I sound? So I went back to the studio and I said, I'm just going to test it out, So I did one message. I think I put a Drake beat on. I think it was Energy. I put it on. It was an instrumental. And I get on there and I just kind of freestyle a positive message on faith or something like that, just kind of talking off my head to see what my voice would sound like, just normal speaking over material. So I listened to it from a music producer standpoint. I was like, okay, that'll work. I just need to practice. I need to mold my craft. I need to study and develop it. Yeah. But I've got the tools there. I just need to mold the craft now. So from 2017, January on, every single week, from then on, I haven't missed a week. Every single week I put out a motivational message on YouTube. Every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I will drop a message. I think we're like 250 something messages out.
Oh my gosh.
Every single week.
Isn't Goggins on one of them? Like the picture.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a video of Goggins or something on.
People do mashups.
Yeah, they like mix it. Somebody mixed
Some are pretty good.
God is good.
Some of them guys got some pretty good talent out there, man. When they mash the way they run together.
It's like the remix or whatever.
Especially with who they put in there. I have no idea who this guy is. He sounds like a guru when he's talking about his real low tone, like it takes him a minute to get one word out. He's like, that kind of guy. And then you come in afterwards, and there's a little bit of Denzel, and then The Rock's always in there, right?
Oh yeah.
Then you got Goggins screaming at you, telling you, hate everybody.
We love you, Goggins.
I came up with him. I don't have any choice. I have to love him.
Amen.
Part of me.
But I started those videos in 2017, and about 3-4 months in, I had a grand total of 50 subscribers, and most of them were mom and the family, right?
Church.
Right, yeah, like the mom and the family, And I remember putting out videos and at this point, like I was telling you earlier, you don't know who's listening on the other side. We don't really get the info from that. You just see that you've had a view, but you don't really know if they're listening to it, liking it, or if it's resonating, stuff like that. And I remember I used to get a notification, be like, oh, somebody left a comment. Like, it's a big deal. Like, oh,
somebody said something?
Man, I'd run to YouTube and it would be mom with a thumbs up, It'd be I go on Wednesday, get another one, it'd be Aunt Linda. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just like,
Hey, it starts with them.
It starts with them.
That's right, man. If the family's not even throwing in it, then you're in trouble.
It literally started because of her.
Right.
She's the one that kicked your butt out there to
go out there, hit that bag. Hit that bag. See, I learned from that bag that, to go to the next level sometimes in life, you got to get in the ring with the thing that scares you the most. And I had to fight those panic attacks in order to do what I'm doing today. First, I had to beat that beast, and around April and 17, I was kind of on the verge, to be honest. I was kind of on the verge of quitting, because I had this dream, that vision, and God started putting the vision in me, like, go out and do the speaking and all this. And but at this point in time, I hadn't had any victories in almost 10 years since music. Like, everything I'd done financially, for some reason, just failed. Like, before my dad died, everything I did succeeded. I mean, I'd trip over money. I would accidentally make money. Like, man, I didn't mean to do that, but I made a bunch of money. Like, anything I did would work. But then as soon as my dad died, it was like everything I tried, the most guaranteed stuff would fall apart. Like, I mean, nothing worked. So at this point, I'm doubting me. I forgot who I am. All I remember is this panic guy, that's been going through anxiety, that's broken, beaten, and really, really unsure of himself. I'm not the one I was before my daddy died at this point in time. And a friend tried to intervene and meant well. Like, a lot of times people around us will mean well, but not necessarily. They're not doing what we need at that moment, or what God's trying to get us to do. They're actually, the enemy's using them to try to deter that. And they have good intentions. They're trying to help us, but maybe they're not really helping us, right? And I had a friend come to me one day and they're like, you really believe all that stuff you're saying on those videos? See, the enemy was trying to get me to doubt what I was doing. And at this point in time, I was questioning it myself. Like, well, why is this stuff not working? And, and we got into a kind of heated argument. Because I'm really, to be honest, I really felt like they were saying, but I didn't want to give up. So there was a war going on, and they were like, why don't you get a 9-to-5 like everybody else? You've always been a dreamer, fairy tales, and da-da-da-da, because they didn't remember the one I was before. So we're having this, heated debate or whatever, and I finally get frustrated, and I get mad. I go into my studio, and I'm hot. I'm at like the crossroad, right? Now on the left is, the fairy tale, just give up. Do the 9-to-5, be the, give up on the dream, be the sheep, the herd, do like everybody else in the world, just accept the life of mediocrity, right? Just stop dreaming. And on the right was God's plan, the world is yours. With God, all things is possible. You're the head and not the tail, above, not below. You live in many nations, not borrow. Blessed in the city, blessed in the field, blessed when you come, blessed when you go. This is on the right, but I've got to choose. Now, my world physically reflects this side of the road. The dream is on this side of the road. So do I buy into what I see or what God has promised? And I'm at this crossroad, and the enemy's pulling me, God is pulling me, and I've got to make a decision though right here, because I'm about to give up. Inside, I'm just done. And I remember going into the studio that day, putting on some music, and at this point in time, I needed to speak to me. I was about to give up, so I needed to speak directly to me. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves, we have to remind us and the world who we really are, right? So I put on some music, had no intention of really putting it out on YouTube. I'm just trying to save me at this moment. And I get in front of that mic, no script, anything, and I say, I was born a champion. Raised a champion. I got champion in my bloodline. All I ever be is a champion, right? Like, I started just saying this powerful stuff that my mom used to tell me.
I sleep.
My dad, I sleep. Right. Like all of that. All of that. Like, I'm just trying to remember who I am. Like, trying to get back in that skin that I used to have on. And there was no script, and even on that message, you'll hear me vocalize what the friend was saying. You really believe all that stuff you saying? And then I'll answer them back with the word, and they'll say, why don't you get a 9 to 5 like every? Those were real conversations and the real stuff that was going on my mind. I just captured it and put it right into the mic, unfiltered, and just said, this is, what I'm feeling right now. So I didn't expect nothing about it, because remember, I only got 50 people, 50 subscribers, mom and the fam. And I put it out that week, just put the message out. And all of a sudden, some big motivational channels got a hold of it. They had millions of followers. Reached out to me and said, can we use it? And I said, yeah, run with it. Next thing I know, it went viral. Millions and millions and millions of views, started going everywhere. And man, God just poured that fuel and lighter fluid and put me in position to go out and tell the world who had healed me. See, I had made that deal with him. And I kept saying, okay, I made the deal with you, go out and tell them who did it. And I'm thinking local, like 2 or 3 people, I'm going to tell that God healed me. God had bigger plans, and I was getting frustrated, but I really, looking back at it, I shouldn't, because I made that deal that I was going to tell him who did it. So it's his job to put me in position to do that. So I didn't need to even worry about that. He was going to make sure that happened. Mm-hmm. And he did. He put the messages in the right hands with the right people. And man, everything started taking off. My book that I had written in 2016, before I was even speaking, God had put the vision in me for my book, Blessed and Unstoppable. So when the videos went viral, next thing you know, the book started selling all over the world. So it was just amazing to see how God intervened all along the way, molded and shaped a broken, tore person like me that made a million mistakes, and put me back on my feet and reminded me, who I was. And I also realized the principles that I was tapping into that set everything in motion too, because God works by way of principle. And as you mentioned earlier, that, about what we speak comes alive, right? Well, when I got behind that mic, I declared it finally. I said, death and life and the power of the tongue. Those that love it shall eat the fruits thereof, right? So I speak, I'm born a champion, raised a champion, and I articulated in such a way and had faith behind what I was actually saying in that moment, right? It opened every single door it got me here today. Like you mentioned that thing there. Had I not stepped up to the mic and bought into God's principle, then we wouldn't be here today. Yeah. So man, it's amazing to see this
and
stuff in real time. Yeah.
It's like that struggle part. It's imagine you're sitting on that cog or that wheel, right? And it's kind of ticks like that. Well, then when you come back around to it, man, you're set. It's like swindling into the breach, right? As soon as you look down that barrier, like, all right, stand by, right? And I mean, it just starts flowing.
Yeah,
like
man.
A wave building around you at night that you couldn't see.
Right.
Until you got to shore.
That's right.
And then when that sucker comes crashing in, you're like, wow, you built up all that? Yeah, you did.
God, it's a spiritual wave, man. That tsunami. Yeah. God had built that and just, went way beyond.
Because what you kick out, that's what people go. I mean, that's your energy. That's your existence, is your word.
Right.
Period.
Did you hear Marcus on Rogan? Or
I heard him on there. He said, I was born a Texan.
Yeah.
Raised a Texan. Yeah.
I was like, he's probably hoping a man.
No, man.
When I was, it's funny.
Yeah. I didn't know if maybe someone sent it to you or if you were listening to Rogan.
Oh, yeah. Somebody had sent it to me and man, I got such a good kick out. I was like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
My stepdad, he's a big Longhorn fan, Texas, and we always go back and forth, Alabama and Texas.
Sure. Oh man. Yeah.
And I said, well, he's gonna love what Luttrell said. I was born in Texas.
Yeah. I love the Tide too, man. I got a chance
he spoke to the.
There's a couple of teams that I speak to on a regular basis. I got into speaking on a whimsical too. Just a guy kind of said something to me, and I was like, whatever. Yeah, it's not what I turned out to be.
But he married an LSU Tiger, so
yeah, like generations of them. So there's Tigers running around here. Mm-hmm. My brother's a Longhorn. I'm a Bearcat. I mean, so there's an Aggie outside.
That's even more complicated with our coach used to be at LSU too, right? And it's not just Alabama.
I know, right?
Right.
Oh, it's a. Yeah. We're mutts around. It's a pound out here. There's all kinds of animals running around, dude. Yeah. Every college known to man.
Kara went to A&M, so we have all the rivals on here. That's so funny. Well, I love your story. I think it's so amazing. And
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just complimenting. I'm just thinking about how awesome.
Are you still having a good time with this?
Amen. all day, every day. This is what I was designed to do.
Right.
Man, there's times that I really feel on fire and alive. And those times are when I'm behind this mic and when I got a pencil or a pen in my hand and I'm writing. I love to write, which, poetry, books, and, lyrics, rhymes, speeches, whatever. I just love creating something, something from nothing. Like it's in here and you're spiritual, and then you take it and you put it down on paper, and then you come here on mic and give it life. And the next thing you know, everybody else is able to, connect or enjoy it or listen to what's going on. And
a scribe of God, right?
Yeah,
That's
man.
George Scribe.
God is good. God is good.
How do people book you for things?
They can reach, straight out to me. Like on every one of my videos that I put out, I have the booking number right there at the top. But right now, God had put it in my heart, like about 6 months before COVID happened, to go out into all the world, right? Go out into all the world and preach the gospel. So I set up my own speaking tour. We went to 40 major cities in the United States, the biggest cities, booked the venues ourselves. And because of the videos, having so many views and being in front of so many eyes, that we started filling up the venues.
That's so awesome.
And I really like it because doing these types of events that I'm in control of, I can say whatever God puts in my heart. I don't have to go get clearance, from this person or CEO or see what the political opinion
You already got
is.
your clearance.
Yeah,
That's
that's it.
You know if you're in the wrong spot, things be in your way.
Right. God
we
is
did
good.
the same
We did the same
thing
thing.
on a military side. We booked all the venues and went all
Yes.
around the United States, and we called it Patriot Tour.
Amen.
And we brought on
Hit the old theaters in the town. The big cities, found them.
yeah,
They're
Yes.
there.
like all the real old
Old.
antique kind of theaters. It was really neat. We've probably hit, I don't know how many cities, but
Every
It
one
was-
of them.
Yeah, a lot.
At least some of them twice.
Yeah.
now.
over
Yeah.
several
Man,
years,
freaking
from
worn our asses out,
2013
man.
to our last one was 2019.
God.
We didn't do it during COVID, but we went every year, and it was
It was a blast, man.
it was
Fun.
a lot of fun. We got to meet. It's so neat to me. Behind the scenes
Mhm.
is what is the most special.
Right.
Yes, you're touching people in the audience, but what happens? There's somebody behind the scenes that you meet, or that that you hear about, that it changed their life. That is what kept us going.
Right.
It was a really incredible experience.
Go out and make a million memories. Save $1 from
Yeah.
each, right? Live 'em
And,
back out
you know,
back in.
I love that part of it, interacting with the people and getting to hear their side of it, their stories.
And their towns.
Yeah. To see,
It's a different world, right?
to see their world and see what they've gone through and overcame, and how God has moved, and hopefully that in some kind of way the videos or the messages or the books have impacted that's what I live for now. It's like, I've written that headstone, like I went back and said, okay, what I want on a headstone, and here lies a man that set the world on fire with truth and impacted 1 billion people. That's my headstone right there. That's
written
my
on your
goal.
shirt, too.
Yes, blessed and unstoppable. Blessed and
That needs to be in the
unstoppable.
dash.
That's right.
Yeah, one of
Blessed and
our-
unstoppable.
One
That's
of our
right.
good friends, Dakota Meyer, he's a Marine Medal of Honor recipient, and he has a business called Own the Dash.
Right,
And
right.
it's living
That's
that
right.
middle part, like what
Mhm.
people are gonna, when you were telling that story about you're gonna lay right here.
Mm-hmm. Here's where you gonna lay.
Yeah, this is where you're gonna lay. Like that's what you have to really live, and to where somebody else can speak truth and write it on your headstone.
Yeah, that was such a big lesson, that funeral home. I go out and teach that message everywhere. I had read this article about this famous author. Every book this man put out was a bestseller. So they were doing this interview and they asked him, like, what's your creative process? How are you able to continue to put out high quality product like this? What's your creative ways? And he said, well, what I do first is I write the last chapter of my book. That way I will always know where I'm going to end up in the story. And it clicked. That funeral home was the last chapter. That is the last page of the book. Here lies a man or woman that did what? That dash, right? That's it. So I realized I needed to write that end destination, the where I'm going to go. I need to write that first. So I'm living every day, getting up, living with intention. And I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm trying to accomplish. And most people, they're just getting up, going through the motions, hoping to stumble onto something. Like, I hope I stumble on to success or stumble on to fulfillment or whatever, and don't even know that they're behind the wheel. They can control which direction that their life takes, the trajectory. And the one thing that I learned from studying all the greats is they live with intention. Like for instance, Elon Musk, he knows, okay, I'm going to Mars, right? 2025. That's it. He gets up every day. It's Mars. It's Mars. He knows exactly what he's here for, right? And every day they're putting the starship together, and another part gets discovered to make them go there, right?
Your purpose.
Right. They know exactly what it is they want. So I realized, from that traumatic moment, that was one of the greatest moments of my life. Wasn't the happy, on the outside or the inside, it wasn't the happiest, but it was one of the most profound turning points of my life, was going to that funeral home and that man saying, what do you want to write on Daddy's headstone and obituary? So I realized I needed to get that. And it took me years to figure out what I wanted to actually, feel and accomplish and do in life. But once I did, man, it was like you walk with a different walk. You get up with a different power behind you. You know why you're here and what it's all about.
Yeah.
And people can feel that. If you walk in a room and you're unsure, you're sending that vibe off like, he don't really know what he's doing. But you come in, you're like, man, there's something different about him. I heard a wise man say one time that the one in the room with the most clarity commands the room. No matter what the role or position, the one that comes in and knows what he is and who he is and why he is, that person will lead the room eventually. Yeah. And when we get behind the wheel and decide what we want our life to be about, make that decision, we begin to define ourselves and name ourselves, because the world most of the time names people. We can either adopt that identity or our own. And from my life, I had to get back and adopt the true identity, which was the champion. And not sports. When I say champion, I'm not talking about sports. We're talking about champion of life. And what's a champion? It's not the person who never gets beat. It's the one that gets beat, gets knocked down, everybody writes off, and the world says it's all over, and that person gets up anyway. That's a champion.
That never quits.
Right. So I wanted to make that my identity. So whatever life throws at me, I remember like, oh, this is who you are. It doesn't matter what life throws, because it's who you are. It's not what happens to you, but it's who you are when it happens. Yeah. And it was time to get behind the wheel. And I made that decision, defined it, and it's been off to the races. God is good.
That is amazing.
God is good.
We're so proud of you. And
keep going, man. You've affected so many people. Me too. I mean, I had the hardest time saying this out loud to another man.
I know. He has a very hard time complimenting other men. You have inspired him.
Yeah,
Let me just
great.
Man, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate it.
I have the hardest time doing that.
I read your story too, man. It's just as much over here on my side, man.
He can't say it. I'm going to say it for him. You really inspired.
Thank you,
Just
man.
do it.
Thank you. But you're an inspiration to us too, man. I mean, I read your story. It's amazing, man.
I appreciate that. I'm a survivor.
Amen.
That's what we do, right?
Amen.
The struggle, man. There has to be. You don't think there's good guys in hell? You got to stick them down there so people have some hope.
That's right. Right. We don't run from hell. We bring heaven to it.
Yeah. I came down with it. That's how we roll.
That's right. We bring heaven to it.
Right.
I have to say, I know how it feels to see your death plot. So, which most young people don't see. They don't ever think about that.
Right.
But we were given an opportunity to have two plots next to each other. This was a few years ago.
It's a little bizarre.
It's a little crazy. But he's supposed to go with me so we can pick this out together. And it's in Austin. So we get there. It's at the Texas State Cemetery, which is a very special place to be buried. And his friend, fellow warrior Chris Kyle's buried there. And we go to Austin, and his friend calls him and says, hey, they were going to go hunting. And he was just like, let's leave early. So I had to go by myself to pick out our final resting spots. And I'm like, wait, I have to do this by myself? I don't like talking about death. He's okay talking about death, but it freaks me out. I want to live, I want to be over 100 years old when I die. I want to see my great-grandkids, maybe my great-great-grandkids. I want to live a long, healthy, happy life. He doesn't mind talking about it. I'm like, why do I get stuck picking out our death plot? So I'm videoing these spots, sending it to him like, is this one okay? Is this one okay?
I was like, lay down and see, does it feel comfortable in that? I was like, man, this is lay down.
Yeah, he said, do we fit?
I was like, "Do we fit in there?" I was like, "Is there a tree?" I was like, "Is there water?" I was
So
like,
morbid.
I get to lay. I was like, "What a great honor!"
I'm like, I'm not.
I get to lay for
laying down
eternity. You
on
know,
the
my body
ground.
right there next to my wife in Texas State Cemetery.
But I have to
Kinda
pick it up by myself.
honor.
And so I ended up picking
I tried to pick out the curtains in the house, man. She was ready. You know what I'm talking about? Because if I'd have picked it out, she's like, "Oh, this is terrible. I don't want to." You know what, right?
I end up picking a spot that has this big, huge oak tree. It's beautiful, and as of right now, there's no other plots that have been picked around it, but it's right across the sidewalk from his friend Chris. So I sent his wife, Taya, she's a great friend of ours. I sent her a message. I'm like, hey, we're going to be buddies for life. Like, after life, we're going to be laying across the sidewalk from each other forever. So we always joke about that, but we're final resting.
It's a little weird. Should we put up a headstone? Just leave the last date off. You're like, "Oh, he's already here."
But it was a very surreal moment.
Yes.
Realizing, like, okay, well, that is where our ending is.
You spend enough time with death, you
He's more
get
comfortable
familiar.
than I am. I'm not okay.
Closest to my heart.
Questions will take you wherever you want to go. You just got to ask the right question. And the question that got me was, what do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah.
When you're dead and gone, what do you want to be remembered for? And that's how we need, whatever the answer is to that, that's how we need to live every single day. Get up and live like that.
Yeah, when someone speaks your name, right? What do they say?
That's right.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
keeping
what a
up
blessing,
your
man.
promise to God
Appreciate
and
it.
telling people who healed you and keep
Amen.
spreading the word, and it'll come back tenfold.
I appreciate you. It's an honor to be here with all of you, man. Thank you for having me here.
How do people find your YouTube, your Instagram, all that kind of stuff?
It's at Billy Alsbrooks. It's my name, all the social media. And then my personal website is blessedandunstoppable.com. So
Okay.
any of the social media, you can always find me by my name at
And they
Billy
can buy your
Alsbrooks.
book on your website.
Yeah, on the website and Amazon.
And Amazon.
Either way.
So we can
Blessed
patch
and
that. Yeah,
Unstoppable.
we'll patch that through on our.
I appreciate that.
How many more stops do you have on the tour?
I think there's 15, 16 this year.
Still get tickets?
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
We always, if we have to make the room bigger or we have to
We'll
get
do
the
it.
extra, we do it. We'll do what we
Is
wherever
it,
God
do you
tells
have
us to
any
go.
in Texas?
I'll be back in San Antonio.
In San Antonio?
We just did Dallas and we did Houston earlier in the year. Dallas this weekend.
Well, yeah, I
and
didn't.
San Antonio.
I'm sorry we missed that one.
Yeah, we'll be in San Antonio October 3rd, I believe. October
Okay.
3rd.
We
be
got a
back
crew
here
out
in
there too,
Texas.
man. We got a crew out in San Antonio.
Oh yeah,
Perfect.
we'd love to have you there, man.
I'll talk
Love
to our
have you
kids'
there.
school about maybe privately hiring you to come out and speak to the high schoolers or something.
Okay.
That would be
Yeah, I
really
spoke
neat.
at Monaghan's. I don't know if you know where that is in West
Yeah.
Texas. To start the school year off, last year I spoke to all the teachers and then
Oh, fun.
all the athletes. I spoke to them afterwards, but they were like the only school district at that time. This was August last year. They were the only one actually meeting. Like there was
Yeah.
300 in a room.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
they were believers, man. I said that's some warriors right there.
That's awesome.
That's some warriors.
Well, if this
Thank you.
episode fired you up, make sure you share it with a friend. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your episodes. You can get them. We drop them every single Wednesday. And we can't wait to see you guys again next week. Later.
Blessed and unstoppable. Success starts with putting the right things into your mind. And my new book, Blessed and Unstoppable, was strategically designed to align your mind with the laws of success. This curriculum will teach you the inner mechanics required to go from average to phenomenal. From living a life with limits to being blessed and unstoppable. As you follow this guide step by step, amazing breakthroughs will happen. New doors of opportunity will open, and favor will begin to chase you down. Blessed and Unstoppable is a 31-day devotional on the laws of success. This book will instigate the thought process and actions required to transform your life. Each day has a Bible verse, a teaching on that day's principle, a positive affirmation, a prayer for the day, self-assessment questions, success quotes, action steps, and a powerful inspirational message. Regardless of what field you're in, Blessed and Unstoppable is your blueprint for success. Get your copy at blessedandunstoppable.com. Also available on Amazon. The struggle is real,
but you know you were meant for more. That dream that's on the inside of you just won't shut up. Cause you know you were meant for more. You've always been different. They never understood you. They've always doubted you. Cause you're different. But you know something that they don't know. You know to be successful, you cannot follow the masses. You gotta be different. And you are bold enough to be you. You've always been different. Success ain't for everybody. B7U Clothing. Wear your identity.